In a world that is robbing dudes of their dudeness, three normal, everyday, middle-aged dudes are taking a stand for dudes everywhere. Join us as we talk about life as a dude in today's world.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Dudefinity podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things dude. My name is Sterling, and joining me as always, international man of mystery, Jordan.
Well, thank you, Sterling. I would tell you where I'm sitting right now, but then I'd have to possibly kill you. Not really sure.
It makes sense.
International Man of Mystery. Pretty sure that that's what's supposed to happen. I don't know if that's mystery from a James Bond standpoint or mystery because I'm weird and you're curious, but we'll just roll with it, brother. As always, thanks for joining us this week. We're going to talk about some dudely things, and then we're going to give you a few tips on what being a dude is and what it kind of looks like and where. I'm crashing. Sorry. You're going to have to cut this out.
Okay.
You have to cut that section out.
As always, we're here to give you some dudely advice, explain what being a dude is, how it looks, how to wear it, where to do it, who to do it with,
and how it feels.
and how it feels deep inside.
So I want to start off with our quick kind of dude minute here.
Yeah.
Okay. So Boston Celtics are sitting middle of the pack, not looking very good. New England Patriots look great. The Boston Bruins suffering some losses along the way. Not looking so hot. Looking like it might be a cold, long winter in Boston for the Bruins and the Celtics. Which is perfectly understandable and fine when it comes to the Celtics. Bruins can't figure out what they're doing. One of the things that I want to talk about in this dude minute, though, is you, Sterling. I want to talk about you in this dude minute. I want to talk about you. Yes, that guy that's not the guy over your shoulder, the guy in front of the camera. So I just want to say, man, this whole thing, guys, came together because Sterling and I have had a friendship that has transcended a lot of different times in our life, a lot of different situations. My dude moment for you guys this week is get yourself a Sterling. Find yourself a Sterling. Find yourself a battle buddy. Find yourself somebody that you talk about life with, that you're willing to take risks with. I wouldn't start a podcast with my wife. I'd start one with Sterling. Love my wife, but I started a podcast with Sterling. Find yourself a guy that holds you accountable, talks to you about the other side, is there for you when you need them. That person you call at 3:00 in the morning when you don't know who else to call, that you know is going to answer the phone. Just get yourself one. I don't care what you do. If I never give you good advice or if I give you any advice at all that you kind of listen to, the most important one I can give you is get yourself a Sterling.
Well, that's high praise, my brother. High praise. No, you're 100% right, Jordan. Like, you got to have somebody in your corner that, and more importantly, and I think it's important that it's a dude. And I think it's actually, in some cases, great if it's an older guy. Because they'll give you, they've lived stuff that you haven't lived yet. And if you're humble and willing to listen.
You see my neighborhood. I live in a retirement community. I surround myself with a bunch of old heads. I love them all, though. And they're some of my best friends. And each one of them come from different walks of life. So I think you're right. I think you're 100% right in that situation.
And, one of the interesting things about doing that sort of thing and having a battle buddy, somebody who'll get in the trenches with you, somebody who's got your back, is they will give you advice. Sometimes they're going to give you advice you don't want to hear. That's the subject of today's show.
That's a tough
advice
one,
we hated to hear, but later on in life figured out it was right.
Why, when you bring this up, can all I think of is your father?
Oh,
and
my
the advice
God.
that he gave us that he probably should have gave to 12-year-old boys.
This will instantly get us demonetized, just so you're aware.
All I can say, fellas, is there are times you cut your fingernails and there's times you don't.
"Oh, you boys better make sure you don't catch your fingernails too long, too short if you're gonna go play stick figure. That shit'll sting."
Oh man, your dad was something else, man. He was full
He
of
was.
dadisms, that's for sure.
That is a fact, my brother. That is
Oh
a
man,
fact.
so tough topic. I'm gonna let you kind of start because
Okay.
you know me, I'm stubborn and I'm hard headed, and so there's not a lot of advice people gave me over the years that I really did want to hear.
One that came to mind when we were kind of spitballing this idea for a show was something that had been said to me. God, I had to have been in my early 20s, and it was a guy I worked with, and he told me, on a long enough timeline, if you're paying taxes, eventually you will end up a conservative. And at the time, I was like, there is absolutely no way. And mind you, I think this is when I
Hear
worked
the
at,
MAGA music, please, folks.
this is what back when I worked,
YMCA.
this is back when I worked at an auto shop. It was local here. And so God, I would have been out of high school. So just out of high school. So this was a long time ago. And I was like, there is no way. Zero chance. Zero chance.
Folks, as
And I
someone
don't
who
even feel
sat on the other side of his evolution with this, I can tell you he's 100% not lying. He was as far as they got.
well, I don't know about that, man.
He
It's
had
just,
blue
I don't
hair,
feel like
was screaming, and his name used to be Karen.
I just think, when it comes to this particular subject, if you're paying taxes, you're a homeowner, you're doing all these, quote unquote American dream stuff, you got a family, etc. You do, like, at least it's been in my experience, this was 100% right. I wouldn't call myself a conservative. At least I don't like to think of myself as one. But, it's like the far things just keep going. The left keeps going so far left. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell happened. You
Well, there's
know?
no messaging. There's nothing you can unify behind right now. There's too much division within their own party for an identity. And so, you know me, man, I have always been kind of where I sit. I also though tend to think that, and I've told you this over the years, a strong Democratic Party is really good for the balance of the country.
Uh-huh.
I'm in shambles over what I see for it at times because we need that yin and yang.
Yeah.
We need an altruistic outlook, and I think the Democrats provide a highly altruistic outlook compared to a practical outlook of the Republicans, and you need both for a functional society. And so because we have so much going on and so much fracture within their own party, I tend to think, you know, it's just sad to see, and it's hard to
Mhm.
rally behind because it's filled with so much vitriol, and the vitriol is just about, the face of what they hate, and for whatever reason, the face of that is orange and sits in the White House. And I have a hard time understanding it. Is he polished? Does he say some things that I go, Lord Jesus, help us, please? Like we're getting off the rails here a little bit, but
Mm.
I got to tell you, man, he's certainly not what they make him out to be, and it's just sad that there's so much hate in our politics right now.
Well, there's this Japanese saying that's basically translates to "my country, right or wrong." And it's one of those things I've said this the entire time. I'm going to root for whoever's in office. Like, if they do a great job, then everybody wins. It may not have been the person that I voted for, but I'm not going to root against them. That's like the only thing I care about is who wins, not the condition or the enrichment of the nation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to root for whoever's in office. I want him to do a great job. Why would I not want somebody to do a great job? Such a weird concept to me.
Well,
Nah,
and so I'll go ahead and say this: the only time in my lifetime that I've never rooted for a president was our previous administration, and the reason why was because I felt like there was some elderly abuse going on in his case, and they were taking advantage of him in a lot of situations, and he didn't know
possible.
where he was. And I honestly thought about him as my grandfather and would hate to see that for, the way that they paraded him around, and it was sad to watch. I was rooting for him to get out of office quickly and maybe get the care that he needs versus being paraded around publicly like that. Because I do think that, while I don't agree with Joe Biden on pretty much everything he's ever done in politics, I do think that he's always, you know, been somebody that had his wits about him and was practical and trying to make good decisions for what he viewed as a better life, for our country and a better way of life. But here's the deal, man. Like I I tend to think that if you lean into anything with with a mindset of hate and vitriol and not just people, you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think at their core, people are inherently good.
Mhm.
I think that, people are inherently moral. I think that there is just some people in the world that make bad decisions and there's no rhyme or reason for it. I mean, you see it all the time, so it is what it is. I hope, to your point about being a conservative as you get older and that piece of advice that you got,
Mhm.
I hope that as you look back on it, you can kind of also see the path that led you there.
Well, I don't know as this is in the way that I'm thinking about this. I don't know if it's a path per se that I don't know if I got led there. I think I didn't change.
It was the
I
path of
think,
life. The path of
yeah,
life.
well,
Life
I don't
happened.
think I changed. I haven't changed a lot
No,
of my viewpoints on things.
no,
Like, I've always thought that, social programs should be a helping hand, not they should be a hand up, not a handout. Like,
yeah,
you should be it should and it's one of those things. If, say, as an example, like, I used to work with this guy. He had this girlfriend. His girlfriend was got pregnant very young, had a daughter. And she once things kind of got settled, she wanted to go back to school. She's like, I want to get an education.
yeah,
That's what you want, right? She's been on the system. She wants to get an education. So they basically told her, and then again, this was years ago, but basically it was, well, we won't help out with you going to school, but boy, we'll help out if you want to stay home. And you go, well, she wants to be a productive member of society. Now, luckily, they, as far as I know, are still together, and was able to help her with that. And she went back to school and became a radiographer, and has a great career, and and is paying into the system that she borrowed from. So those have always kind of been my thoughts. And I've always kind of been like, if two people like, for me, it's like, I don't care if you want to get married, you can get married, as long, and if you're not hurting anybody by your actions, then, it's a free country. Do what you want. Don't force it on other people, but you can do what you want. And I applaud you for doing it. But I think I've always had that mindset. It's just the party that had that mindset has now shifted. And I feel like I was kind of left, those middle of the road kind of folks, we got kind of left in the middle and
I don't think
told
it's
by
the
one side, well,
shifted.
you're
I don't think
hmm?
the party. I do agree with you that the party has shifted, but I think there's more of a your mindset as you've gotten older. Like you still believe in the things you believe in, but your
Hmm.
experiences and the way you live life tell you that you don't want to pay more taxes, that you don't believe that your money should be going for these things, that you have, you see the social construct and how the country works because it's working for you every day. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So at its core, I think where you don't sell yourself short on a little bit of change there because your view of the world has changed as you've gotten older because it can't. You're a
Yeah.
father now. It can't not. You're a father now.
Yeah,
You're
sure.
somebody you're more experienced than you were when you were 23, life
Hmm.
experience. So I think the thing is I think that I don't think for a second that the party hasn't shifted some, but I think
I
that
think it's
what's
shifted a lot.
happened, well, you say
I think
that.
it's shifted a lot. Yeah, but just look at, okay, we talk about this all the time. The goalposts moving, right?
Yeah.
Like, when it came to the gay marriage thing, and you and I have different opinions on this sort of stuff, but that's okay. But I'm for it,
Just
have at
because
it,
I won't
enjoy it.
marry you doesn't mean I have a different opinion, bro. How many times do I gotta tell you this?
But it's like that was the goal, right? That was the goalpost.
I mean,
That's
I
what
hear
we were
you.
you aiming for? And then got there, and then they're like, actually, the goalpost is another 100 yards that way, my friend. Keep going. And I'm like, well, what's at that goal? Like, I don't even know what that
Well,
goal
but
is.
how has the
How am I
Republican
supposed to know
how has
if
the
I want to get
Republican
there or not?
Party shifted? Because in my opinion, they've always been on two things:
Mm,
financially conservative
hmm
and protecting the constitutional rights that were given.
Sure.
Outside of that, all they've done is more vocally shown that they're willing to work with people. I mean, they're not against gay marriage anymore. I think there was a portion of the Bible Belt conservatives that were,
Mhm.
but as a whole, actually, when they were polling it back then, most people said they didn't care.
Well, and I also think that you have more people who are kind of in the group that I come from
Yeah,
that, when you're looking at the two parties, which one, if you are a centrist, and I think most things are in somewhere in the middle,
yeah.
personally. And, if
Two
you're a
lies and the truth,
centrist,
man. Two lies and the
yeah,
truth, always.
if you're a centrist, the right is much more accepting of you being a centrist than the left
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Because if you don't believe in this specific, it's almost like it's a competition to see who can be more marginalized. And
There's
I'm
a
just like, I don't play
mentality
that game.
there's a mentality in American politics, and it tends to come from one side more than the other. And I'm going to use a phrase here, and I don't know as if I've heard anybody say it, but it's just what comes to mind for me.
Mm.
It's either conform or condemn.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I have a very hard time with that in and of itself because there's people out here saying that if Trump became president, the Republicans had control, that they would lose rights. What rights have been taken from anybody? Other than the
Huh?
right other than the right to live in our country illegally, what rights have been taken from anybody? And keyword,
Not
folks,
wrong.
illegally. And where I really struggle with that whole sentiment is the same party that was pushing for it, Obama, the Clintons, Biden, Kamala, Hakeem Jeffries, the same party that was pushing for deportation of illegals 10 years ago. Now,
Mhm.
because it doesn't pander to their base, even though secretly, because here's the deal. If here's the deal. If the Democrats wanted to obstruct the illegal immigration, they could tie the Trump administration up in court way more than they are. Don't think for a second that publicly they're not just saying there are some Democrats who are just, oh, I'm mad about illegal immigration, but behind the scenes they're going, thank God someone's doing something about it finally.
Mm.
It's just, to me, you got actors and it's kind of like pretenders and real, you know what I mean? And I feel like there's a lot of pretend going on in the media right now. But
So
anyway,
let me ask you this.
yep.
What about you? What comes to your mind? Advice that you hated to hear at the time, but later on you're like, son of a bitch, they were right.
Okay. So it's going to be a weird one, a little bit different than some stuff. But, when I was making a pretty large financial decision, believe it or not, closer in the rearview mirror than you would think, about 7 years ago,
Mhm.
my father-in-law said to me, because in my head, I had resigned. I couldn't afford the decision I was making and what I was going to
Sure.
do. He said to me, he said, if you can afford it now, which I could afford it, I just didn't want to, and it was going to be a stretch, it'll get a heck of a lot easier to afford it later. And I got to tell you, I didn't like hearing it because I knew I was going to stretch myself because of that advice and that conversation, and so I was kicking and screaming on doing it. For a little while, it was
Mhm.
tight,
Sure.
but definitely he was right. And I also hated it because I don't know if any of you guys out there ever, get advice from your father-in-law and he's right, but it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great. No, I love you, pops, but regardless, it really it it was just something that I was not prepared for, and it stretched me a lot further than I thought it would, if that made sense.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, no, that does. Absolutely.
Um, I will tell you, there's another piece of advice I got when I was young. Um, And I hated hearing it, but it was true. And it
Mhm.
actually came from a teacher of ours in 8th grade,
Okay.
Mr. Holyoke.
Oh, I liked Mr. Holyoke.
So Mr.
Okay.
Holyoke gave me a piece of advice one day after school. He said, Jordan, he goes, do you like school? And we were playing, it was when we were playing basketball.
Mhm.
And I said, no, I hate it. And he goes, okay. He goes, and here's what I'm going to tell you. You better find a way to sell something good. And, he's like, cause you're not gonna be a scholar. You're not gonna go. And he basically was telling me, like, kind of be real with myself about my expectations on what I was gonna be.
Uh-huh.
And he was encouraging me towards, at a young age, he encouraged me towards sales. And it was, I was like, oh man, I'll prove you wrong. I'm gonna be a professional something, you know what I mean? In my head, whatever 8th grade me was thinking. And it was very frustrating. And I felt like he was basically telling me I couldn't do what other people were gonna do.
Mhm.
But he was 100% right, and it was
Mhm.
all about just being realistic with my talents and where I could use them, you
Mhm.
know? But I was mad. I wasn't happy. I felt like he just a guy that I really liked and looked up to told me that I wasn't gonna amount to much.
Mhm. Well, it doesn't sound like that's what he was trying to say, but yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
But 8th grade me didn't take it that way.
Mhm. So, another one that I had been told. This was maybe a little bit controversial,
Uh-oh.
but one thing that I had been told was never never fully open up to a woman.
Can we avoid this one?
Well, I mean, that's what we're here for, man. W-
It's not.
there's I and at the time it just sounded like,
Because
well, you should
vulnerable
keep.
dudes tend to do better with connecting with their partners.
Well, and there's a difference between vulnerability and okay, I'll give you an example. There's things that I'm going to tell you and that you're going to tell me that are for us to know. It's
Yeah, but they're usually like dude stuff.
well, but think about some of the dude stuff that we talk about. I'm not saying that you can't, if you had a hard day, talk to your wife about it. That's
Yeah,
not what I'm saying. But you sometimes you get like as a guy, you enter into some period of life where the struggle is fucking real,
yeah,
and you're not sure how you're going to make it work. But you may be bound and determined to do it, but you don't want to lay that on your partner because again, that stress is for you to handle, right?
right.
That's weird. But you know what I mean? Like there's things
No,
that
quite honestly, I'm trying to get rid of this line on me, so bear with me for a second, folks. You're gonna have to cut that out, but there we go.
that's all right. But you know what I mean? Like there's certain
Yeah.
things that I think you can discuss with your guy friends that just aren't, like s- say you need to do, I don't know, like buy a house. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some big thing, and you're not entirely sure how you're going to make ends meet, but you don't want to put that stress on your partner. So rather than putting that on
Well,
your
no, that's
partner,
just counsel, dude. That's just counsel. That's different.
well, but it's all opening up. Like I'm not going to discuss all of the things that I am worried about with my partner all the time, and that has served me fairly well. Now,
Well, part of that's
maybe
just
maybe
being a
that's a different
dude.
huh?
No, part of that's just being a dude, and it's the amount of
Yeah.
pressure and stress we put on ourselves. You know what I mean? And
Well,
like
and
the
that's what
amount
I'm.
of like, uh, like there's things that keep me up at night that don't keep Tara up at night, and they would never keep Tara up at night because she wouldn't know about them.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
If that's one of the things. It's your cross to bear. It's not theirs. And
yeah.
that's one of the that's kind of what I'm talking about here. Is it's not saying that you can't, you know,
But that goes back to why it's so important to get yourself a Sterling.
fair enough. Yeah, you need to have a battle. You got to have that have a dude or a group of dudes in your life that you can express those problems with, and more importantly, because like
Let's be real. It's not about being able to express the problem. It's about being able to have someone understand the problem that you're expressing.
exactly.
And so the true thing here is when I come to you and I talk to you about, man, I don't know how I'm going to do something. I don't know how I can afford this. I don't know how, this situation with my daughter and what I'm going to do and, my wife and, you know, I come to you because you understand it.
Right.
So that's why, yes, it's great to have, like you were saying, like earlier about the older friends. I think
Hmm.
it's incredible to have that. I've got a roadmap.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got a roadmap of what not to do. Sorry, John,
Yeah.
if you're listening.
Absolutely.
No, I'm just joking. Love you, man. You're great. But sometimes you get a roadmap of what not to do. But these guys have life experience. But that's why it's so important to find yourself that person that you or group of people that are your age in the same stage of life with you that you can truly talk to. Because I'll tell
Uh,
you, man, the other thing that's happened in this world is technology. When we're sitting in a room, we all tend to be on our own phones. You know what I mean? But technology also provides us the ability because you and I, we live 14 hours away. We're
mhm.
just as close as we've ever been. So,
Yep.
I take advantage of the opportunity to be able to connect with people, put life down sometimes and pick up the phone and get on the phone with a buddy and just talk about it, man. Like I've got, I've got 5 guys that I talk to regularly about problems, in different situations, and each one has a different outlook on life,
Uh-huh.
and it's to me, it's get yourself a Sterling, but get yourself a basketball team.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's again, it's not saying I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you can't cry at a movie in front of your wife or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. But there's certain things
Sorry,
that
but I'm just picturing you cry at a movie. I just don't see it. Like the fact that you just dropped that connection is so far fetched for me. Like I don't even know if you cry. Like I don't if like one solitary tear came out.
I
Like
yeah, I had there's two acceptable times to cry at funerals or the Grand Canyon, and you're allowed one individual tear. One
yeah.
just solitary manly tear. Just
See,
it's literally only made out of testosterone.
there's
That's
only
the
two
only
times in my
way you're
life
allowed
to
to do it.
cry. That one
Mm,
solitary tear. You ready for this?
mhm.
The first one when Tom Brady left the New England Patriots. There will never be another acceptable moment to cry again. It's just hey, listen, man, I'm not saying he's God or Jesus, but he's the closest thing on earth. Okay, he's football Jesus. Let's be real. So that tear might have been shed then, and then the birth of my baby girl, man. Come on, that was it. You
Yeah.
shed more than one tear at some point.
Nope.
No, well, that's just because you're soulless, but it's okay.
You're not wrong. Mm.
I know. I'm well aware. I'm well aware. Why do you think this friendship works? I have the soul for both of us. Um, which you think would be the other way around if we were unpacking some certain like physiological differences, but we won't. We'll just leave it. I would have thought you had the soul and I
Took
didn't,
me a
but
second. Took me a second to figure out what you were what you were
I
talking
forget
about.
you're Buffalo Black, not Southern Black. So,
So yeah. Um what about you? You got another one?
um, oh my dad, oh my dad, oh my dad. Go to church. Go to church. Stay connected to the Lord.
Mm,
It'll provide balance in your life and you'll have a better life for it. You and I have differences on it, but we both agree that, and you've even said this, that you've sensed it's plausible to understand in your words. It's plausible
mhm.
to think that there could be a higher power potentially the older I get. I've heard you say that at least 2 or 3 times in the last like 10 years. Um, but you also have said anyway. So
Yeah.
dad, just that encouragement of being in church even when I was young and rebellious and looking in different ways and, looking for different things and what church was going to provide me, running the streets, partying, meeting girls, all that stuff. And
Mhm.
then, dad always church, 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 consistency, be in church, be in church, be in your Bible, pray, make sure you're saying your prayers. While I was living a life that was not church oriented, it was
Yeah.
very frustrating to hear him tell me to go to church. Um, in fact, it was very frustrating to hear,
Yeah.
So as I gotten older though, I've grown to appreciate the morals and the wholesomeness that church provides in my life, or that the Bible provides, or that the Lord provides. So I just, thanks, Dad, for staying on top of me. If you're ever listening to this, thanks for staying on top of me and always being consistent with that message. It drove me crazy, but it was right for my life. So
Mhm.
thank you. But it was hard to hear, man. I mean, you know, here's this thing that I can't see, I can't touch. I'm 21 years old, and you're
Mhm.
telling me, or 20 years old, out partying, and you're telling me to go to a place that I can't. Like, no, back then I was going to see things, but it wasn't the Lord. It was usually, a lot of colors and some womping lights and stuff. Um, but anyway, it's just it was good. It was good advice, sound advice. It was advice that I will give my kid for the rest of my life,
Mhm.
but I didn't want to hear it when I was being told it.
Mhm.
The other one, and I'm gonna say this, and I think that you'll get this. I think a lot of people are gonna relate to this one, and this is one of the ones that. Okay, so we've talked about advice that came true. I want to talk about advice that pissed you off and never really became true. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'm
Sure.
gonna say this. My mom, love you,
Yeah.
mom. God knows though, do as I say, not as I do.
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how much that saying pissed me off when I heard it from my mom as a kid. I can't tell you how much as a parent it pisses me off that my mom would say it to me, because
Yeah.
I am a firm believer of lead by example. People follow
Sure.
things that they see.
Mhm.
And so that do as I say, not as I do thing just has never been, and it's probably the piece of advice that had always pissed me off so much, or the like thing I was told that, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that.
yeah.
It's tough to it's a hard thing to reconcile when, you're being the person who's supposed to be modeling what the appropriate behavior is for an adult is not, but they expect you to do. Yeah. Yeah, no, I could see that being
It's just
piss you
it was
off.
a tough one. And then the other one that pissed me off is when your best friend tells you that you should probably start losing some weight because he's worried about your health. You kind of want to kick the shit out of him, but
The fucking listen,
it,
that's
it actually it, he, it's it's almost like he's and wants to make sure that I live a little while longer than, but you never want to hear you're fat. You never want to
yeah,
hear
yeah,
you're
I hear
fat.
you. Um, yeah, that's yeah. And, like I think there's a lot of times that you hear advice, and especially from people who've walked the path you're on already. Like I can think of so many times as a kid that my old man would tell me something. And he's like, "Well, you're too stubborn to listen, so you're just gonna find out on your own." One thing he used to tell me all the time was, "There's no point in doing anything unless you're doing it to be the best at it." And I was like, "A lot, well, I don't like that. That doesn't make any sense. There's plenty of stuff I do that I don't necessarily want to be the best at. I was like, I don't really care. There are things that I have to do, not
Yeah.
things that I want to do." You know, but, at the end of the day, it's correct. It's right. Like you want to be the best student that you can be. And you may not be like, I think back to when I was in college because I didn't figure any of this stuff out until I was in college. I was like, oh, if I work harder I get better grades, I understand the material more, so when I get into the workforce, I'll actually be able to use it. And was I the best student there? Well, no, but was I doing it with the intent to be the best? Yeah. And that works out better for you. You may not be the best student, but if
I'm
you're
gonna
if you're
point
doing your
something
best to
out to
be.
you. I think your dad raised you with a lot of biblically based principles
Oh, I'm sure he was. I'm sure he did. He was quite the
in all
quite
things.
the
Do it. Well, I mean, his name was Nehemiah, which is a book of the Bible. Um, but if you think about it, right? Like the
middle name
Bible
was
talks about.
Leviticus.
I know. The thing that's crazy though is the Bible talks very clearly about doing all things to the best of your ability for the Lord. Like your work is for the Lord and how you should do it to the best of your ability. So, I mean, I think that's good sound advice that he was giving you,
Mm.
even if he was giving it to you in the Nehemiah book of life way. But it's true. I mean, it was good
There,
advice.
that's all it is. It is so funny to me is that if you take some time and think about some of the things that you were told in your youth that would have made life a lot easier if you had just listened. I think there's all kinds of stuff like that.
Hey, I'm
You
gonna
know,
tell you something, and I feel like this is true. Life is learned, not taught.
that's true. Yeah, it
I feel
really
like
is.
life is learned, not taught. And I'm gonna ask you a question. I think this is a
Mhm.
great this is a great trying to think. I've lost my thought. I'm trying to think of how to, because when you said something a second ago, it came up and I was like, oh, this would be good. Um, okay. What are two pieces of advice,
Mhm.
one for and one against? Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. So, what are two pieces of advice if you could sit down and have a bourbon and talk to 21-year-old Sterling? What's
Mhm.
one piece of advice that you would tell yourself to do? And what's one piece of advice you would tell yourself not to do?
Ooh. I probably would have told myself at 21 to to get the education that I have now to do that sooner. Um, and I tell this to people all the time, who are like, I really want to go to school to do X, but I really, it's 4 years or 2 years or whatever. And I tell them, that time's going to pass no matter what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're 22 now, you're going to be 24, regardless of whether you go to school and spend those 2 years getting the education, the field that you want to be in, or if you continue doing whatever it is that you're doing right now. Those 2 years are going to go by no matter what. It's just whether or not you choose to use them wisely. Um, and then a piece of advice that I would tell myself not to do. Huh.
What's something that you did, and not that you have regret about, but just something that you're like, man, my life would have been a lot easier if I just would have done this different. Or because I made this choice,
I don't know, man. That's a tough one because I don't. I do. I'm the type of person that I believe that you're where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You know. It's the whole chaos theory thing. So if I changed one small thing, who knows what the repercussions would be now? And I always think about my kid, like there's not really anything I could change in my earlier years that wouldn't have resulted in her not being around. And that's not acceptable to me. So I don't really have one. What about you?
so I think one decision that I would have done, because let's face it, dude, school's not for me. We know that. Like
Sure.
I don't like it. I I don't like being taught by people who aren't smarter than me. So it was always an issue for me. No, I'm just joking. Teachers are great, love them, but you know me, man. Um, and so I think for myself to, and this would set off a chaos event for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if I could tell my younger self something that I should have done, I should have gone in the military.
Okay.
100%. I know, like, and I started to do it when I was younger, and I was 17. I needed a signature from my mother to go to boot camp, then finish school and come back. And she said no because 9/11 had just happened, and she was just, you know, kind of poo-pooing my
You're
idea.
dating us now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say all that to say, that I was intrigued by the discipline the military offered. I was
Mm-hmm.
intrigued by the level of fitness and the level of provision they offered.
Mm-hmm.
I would have just fast tracked my career a little bit more.
Sure.
It provided some additional schooling and things that I didn't otherwise get. So I've oftentimes thought about how I would have told my younger self, go in the military. And the thing is, I knew Tara before I went in the military, so who's to say I wouldn't have been with her after?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Sure.
Uh, and then the thing I would tell myself not to do, I would tell myself not. I would tell myself not to give up on Liberty. I would have stayed at Liberty.
I was just gonna say when you went to college. Okay. All right.
I would have told myself not to give up on it and to tough it out rather than just say screw it and start working. Um, you know what I mean? Uh, so I would have told myself no, not to give up on Liberty, only because I think it would have been more important to my younger self to accomplish something sooner. But I also do not regret anything of where I am, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like I say, it's not as though either of us are in what one would call a poor spot. We're not. Like we're both in fantastic spots, but it would have been nice to have started my career a little earlier.
Yeah.
And I think that that's there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And sometimes it just takes you a little time. Like I did a year of college myself when I first got out of high school, and I couldn't stand it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it either.
Okay. What's one piece of advice, life-wise, just as a
Mhm.
whole, looking back on your life, that you feel like you missed out on something and you wish you could go back and just smack yourself in the head and do it a different way? I can tell you right now, one for me,
Mhm.
100%. 100% for me, and really it's twofold. One, I wish I would have never moved, like, as much as I love, I wish I would have graduated in Maine.
Mhm. Yeah. Sure.
Um, the other thing is I wish that as my grandmother got older, she was always there for me. I
Mhm.
wish that I wish I could tell myself she's not gonna be there tomorrow,
Yeah.
so that I would have spent more time with her,
Yeah.
because I miss her every day, kinda thing. So, I think, those are the 2 things that I would maybe do different, slap
Mhm.
myself about, but outside of that, man, everything else is kinda happening the way it's supposed to.
Well, yeah, and I think that is kind of life. You get to a point where you're just like, yeah, things are pretty good, and I wouldn't want to change anything to potentially mess that up.
Yeah.
Now, what about a piece of advice that let's say you've got, not specifically you, but if you had to give one piece of advice to a 20-year-old guy or a 21-year-old guy, what would it be?
Your effort's more important than your knowledge. Your knowledge will catch up,
Hmm.
but your effort at that point is more important than your knowledge. People will see your hustle. People will see when you show up on time. People will see when
Hmm.
you show up early. People will see when that you're always available, that you're there when you need to be. Um, People will see that, and that's all effort. I didn't know anything when I was 20 years old, man. I've known a lot about a lot of stuff over the years, but I mean, but when it came to my career and like life wise and what put me ahead, you know, the biggest things that got me where I'm at are my effort and showing
Mhm.
up. And then everything after that, I learned, and now I'm, I don't want to say I'm an expert at anything, but I'm pretty much an expert in in what I do for a living. Like I understand it inside and out, and I know it, but I didn't always know that, and it wasn't taught. Again, it had to be learned. It couldn't be taught. It had to be learned. And so I'm a I'm a huge believer in effort. And then so that's my like life advice. But the other thing
Mhm.
that I tell people all the time too is like I've got a couple of younger buddies just from past employment that have come to me and said, Jordan, when did you know it was time to get married? What's some advice, that you can give me on getting married? And um I think love is great. It's easy to love somebody.
Mhm.
It's, in my opinion, it's pretty easy to love people. It's all the stuff that comes with it that gets hard. Love's never really the question, in my opinion.
Mhm.
It's the fit of personalities in life. And so for me, what I always tell people when it comes to relationships is it's all about what you can tolerate. Because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you're gonna know theirs and they're gonna know yours. And it's all
Mhm.
about, can you tolerate it? Can you overlook it? Can you
Yeah.
push down those little things that drive you nuts,
Yeah.
Um, and so, there I gave you 2 pieces of advice. Sorry. How about you?
I think one of the things that, and I think probably the biggest piece of advice I would give a 20-year-old guy is focus on I think the thing to do is to focus on your purpose. The girls will come, the family will come. If you put yourself in a good spot, life wise, if you're taking care of your body, if you're taking care of yourself, if you're taking care of your wallet, your bank account, then the other things will come. But if you're the type of guy who's like good with your hands, like go learn a trade. If you're there, if you are a salesman, go make that be your thing and focus on those things. Because it's too often I see guys that are just, I want to chase women and I want to chase the dopamine hits and all of that stuff. And that doesn't get you anywhere, you know?
So would
So,
you say focus on your purpose, or would you say focus on, uh, be realistic on your focus?
well,
Because
no,
your
I think
purpose,
it's your
like for
purpose.
me, my purpose wasn't found until I had a wife and daughter.
Well, and that's what I mean. So, like, for you, it worked
But
out.
I didn't know that that was my purpose.
Right. Well, so this is what I'm saying. I think you have to have a purpose.
Yeah.
So if you're, if it's, and we talked a little bit about like goal setting and that sort of stuff, but I think you need to have a purpose. What are my goals? What am I moving towards? And do it in such a way that you're building, because, like I say, a lot of this stuff will come naturally if you're putting yourself in a good position. If
Yeah.
you're, like I say, if you are a driven person and you have ambition and you know where you want to be and have taken the time to really figure that out, all the other stuff comes on its own.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and I'm not saying if you sequester yourself in your home and the only thing you're doing is writing code, but you're a millionaire. Well, that's not the most ideal situation. But you've had a purpose and you have worked towards that. And like I say, the success and the girls and the family that will come when you've got that strong base and foundation to set that stuff on.
So
Um, so.
I'm gonna go on a loop tangent here. Okay. So we've had 3
Mhm.
episodes. First one, success.
Mhm.
Second one, boundaries.
Oh. What was the second one?
Is this our fourth one?
This is our fourth.
Okay. So the first one was success.
No, the first one was the introduction of
Okay.
of our.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
So
introduction,
success,
success. Yep. Success,
boundaries.
boundaries.
Okay. And now we're talking about advice.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I'm going to say to everybody. The loophole that I'm going to close for you is this. Sterling just talked about your purpose. For me, once I found my purpose, I felt successful intrinsically.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
purpose was my family. It was the spot of life I'm in right now. I think that your purpose changes in life. I think that your purpose,
Absolutely.
I think that your purpose and your satisfaction and your success and your boundaries all change based on the situation you're in life. So when I say all this, I say it to say, don't let your purpose in life be a hard stop for your boundaries and what you define as your success. Be
Mhm.
nimble in what you're doing. Be realistic in the goals that you set. Be
Mhm.
realistic in understanding that your purpose is going to change, and sometimes you might not feel as successful because that purpose has changed, but it will always catch up. And be smart about the boundaries you set for yourself in order to obtain that purpose and to obtain that success that you're looking for. Whether that success is relational, whether that success is financial, whether that success is um, physical in your bodies, or you can feel success in multiple different areas of your life, but don't let the purpose drive you so hard that you hard stop the ability to achieve that success and keep those boundaries protected as you do it.
Yeah, I just it's real easy to get, like I say, it's real easy to get distracted by video games or going out and drinking, drugs, girls. It's easy to let those things cannot be your purpose.
No.
Those are fun things to be involved in, and that's okay. But you need to have a purpose outside. More what I'm trying to say is it's not good for young guys to wander aimlessly through the desert. You know, if you wander aimlessly, you don't end up anywhere. But if you pick a point and this is my goal that I'm moving towards, all the other stuff will come. No one has ever, you know, not one guy has ever gone broke uh chasing money, but they've gone broke chasing women. That it's if your focus is the next piece of tail, or your focus is the next drink, or the next game that's coming out, if that's your primary purpose, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you have a purpose in mind and you're working towards that goal, that other stuff becomes easy because you've got this foundation to build upon. At the end of the day, you know if you're healthy and you've got some money in your pocket and you've got some confidence because you've worked your ass off and you've gotten yourself somewhere, other people notice that, you know and you're going to get those other things that enrich your life, and your purpose may change, like I said, like you're saying, when you get married, you have family, your primary goals are going to change
Yeah.
throughout life. But if you start out in the beginning with that purpose, which again, I did not, I wandered around for a long time. If you think about how much better off you would be in the end.
Well, it would be certainly nice if we were all born and it was just assigned to us that we were going to be this and that's what we wanted to do and we were good,
Well,
but
and sometimes it's a hard
we
thing to
don't live
figure out.
in
Yeah.
that kind of a dystopian society where, we're going to we're
You will be a garbage man, and your children shall be garbage men, and they will all be garbage men.
for whatever reason that voice made me want to go, "We're the Knights of Day." Anyway, I just think that our our focus in life needs to be forward thinking and
Mhm.
not backward. Like, there's a reason why the windshield or the rear view is bigger than the windshield, and
Yep.
it's so that we can see forward and not behind us. So my challenge to anybody and everybody listening is, as you're navigating the world trying to be a dude, as you're navigating whether you're 75 or 25, or 20, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, just attack every day with a purpose, no matter what it is. Just, today, like, for example, it sounds like a little thing. I needed to go through some clothes. I'm gonna go through those clothes after I'm done on this episode. I have to put away some winter clothes or get the winter clothes out.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, but that was one of my purposes for the day, So, there can be major purpose and there can be minor purpose, but regardless, attack it with a purpose. Like, I'm gonna attack a steak tonight with a purpose. That's the thing, you know. So I think I'm going to put up a polling question this week on our socials. I would love to know what people think of a couple of different topics
Mhm.
and see which ones that you guys would like us to talk about. And if you don't respond, then we're going to talk for 24 hours straight in your car radio, and you won't be able to shut us off. Oh, man.
Well,
So,
hit us up on the socials. Links are in the bio. Like, subscribe, do all that crap. Find us on Bookface and Instaflam. And Jordan, why don't you take us out?
as always, stay a dude.
I'm the king of my driveway, mowing lines so straight. Got a toolbox full of glory and a mortgage by the plate. I'm a modern man with an old school